Let's return to our top story. The Prime Minister promising to keep communities safe if violence escalates. Police say they're preparing for at least 30 possible gatherings in the UK later.
So across England and Northern Ireland, people are taking stock of the damage caused to their businesses, their homes and cars over the past week, as neighbours rally round to help pick up the pieces. From the North East, Mark Denton has this report.
Thugs surround a car in Middlesbrough and set it alight. While this was happening to his car on Sunday afternoon, Brendan was in the middle of a 12-hour shift as a carer, looking after elderly people in the town.
So when I came back home, I saw what happened. I just only saw the remnants of it. It was no longer a car, but a scrap. I couldn't even recognize it. I went to the bathroom. I cried because I know how much it took me to be able to save this money and be able to get this. What am I even doing here? That was the question I asked them. What am I even doing here? I'm here taking care of somebody. I'm here taking care of people, making sure they are okay. They are elderly.
While the disturbances have left an impact on Brendan, this community campaigner, who's previously worked with the United Nations, says it's not only cars and buildings that'll need repairing.
The media discourse and the political language being used around immigration and Islam hasn't helped the situation. And quite literally, we are picking up the pieces of what happened on Sunday, but moving forward, there is a real desire to change the situation we find ourselves in, and that's only going to come through education and everyone pulling together.
3 of the region's police forces have now faced the difficult task of keeping order, and their resources could become more stretched, according to one expert.
August is going to be a challenge for us moving forward, and some officers who are routinely employed and deployed in specialist roles, which perhaps work used to working in civilian clothing and the like, may find themselves drafted into uniform roles to bolster the numbers.
But for Brendan, at least, there is a happier ending. The care company he works for launched a fundraising appeal to raise £3,000 to get him a replacement car.
We've raised 3,500, I think it has, so we've gone over what we initially expected, and it was in the space of about 12 hours. So we just couldn't believe that people could be so kind.
I come to realize that amidst the challenges and the difficulties that we pass through, there are also good people.
The images endure, but Brendan's is a story of hope, a community that refuses to let violence define it.
That was Mark Denton reporting there. We're joined now by Jim McMahon, Minister for Housing, Communities and Local Government. Thank you for coming in and talking to us at this really difficult, really busy time. Watching that report there, we've seen so much negativity on our front pages, news broadcasts over the last week. But people are really rallying, aren't they? There is, as much as there is a negative feeling going on in many towns and cities, there's also some real positivity.
I mean, that's a very good way to frame, actually, a community response, because most of us want to live in our communities in a peaceful way, feeling secure, feeling confident and having good relationships. But there is a tiny minority of people who don't want that, who want to cause disruption. And what we've seen over a range of different incidents that have taken place over the country is that even in those circumstances, when faced with absolute adversity, the community does rally, self-organise, come together and repair. And it's such a contrast, isn't it, that on one hand you have people who are setting out to knock down a community, and literally on the other hand you've got people that are building a community back up, sometimes from the dust. And I think that speaks powerfully about actually the Britain that we really are.
Slightly perverse, isn't it, that it takes something like this for people to be able to realise who their neighbours are and, you know, what that sense of community is for. You would, I suppose, hope that we could tap into this a little bit more all of the time, not just after some of those horrible scenes that we've witnessed.
Well, I think for many communities, they will be genuinely shocked about the way the streets where they live, where they go out every day, have been turned into, you know, frankly, scenes that you would never imagine. You know, cars being set on fire, groups of people coming down the street in face masks, in a way that genuinely is intimidating and it's scary for people. And so what's the response for that? Well, people self-organise, they come together and say, that is not our community. The community that we are is one that is united, one that is supportive of each other. And actually the kind of acts of kindness there that we're seeing, I think, really do speak for that. Equally, though, people want to know that the perpetrators of these crimes are dealt with by the justice system. And so that's about having enough police on the streets, and we're ensuring that is taking place. It's about having enough prosecutors to make sure that the charging decisions are dealt with swiftly, and having the court capacity and the prison capacity to deal with people who are causing that harm to our communities.
There'll be a lot of people who'll be very worried today. They'll have seen that there are these protests planned in maybe 30, maybe more areas of the UK today. How do you reassure those communities that Sir Keir Starmer has said that those communities will be safe? I mean, that's quite a big claim, and people won't necessarily be feeling that this morning.
I think it's fair to say that people are feeling very anxious at the moment when they're seeing the scenes that are on TV, when they're seeing the locations that are being circulated online. That is genuinely causing anxiety in the community. And of course, it's right that people are vigilant, that people share any intelligence that they've got, and that people look after each other. But the vast majority of people today will go about their everyday business like they do every single day of the week and the year in peace and security. And for those people who want to disrupt, who want to cause damage, who want to cause the scenes that we have seen again, they can absolutely expect to face the full force of the law, because it's important. You know, none of us get away from the fact that cohesion and the tensions around some of that have been hugely escalated and exploited by essentially criminals in the way that they have acted is something that communities have to reconcile every single day. I know as a constituency MP, these are quite regular conversations that we have. But the idea that that can be exploited in the way that we have seen cannot be allowed to go unchecked. And so people expect the full force of the law, and that's exactly what will happen.
Do you think there's a danger that what we've seen on the streets and these riots overshadow more legitimate concerns from communities? As you said, you've been a constituency MP, you're from Oldham. And I wonder whether, you know, those concerns that people have about a lack of opportunity, about the cost of living, about a decline in living standards, the quality of public services, that actually those are real concerns that these communities have. And it's so overshadowed by these protests and riots that we've seen on the street that those real concerns are not being heard in Westminster.
Well, they are. I mean, if you look at the manifesto that we set out and you look at the missions that we have set out, that is about growing the economy, it's about giving people opportunity, and it's also about making sure that every part of the UK gets to benefit from growth in the country doing well. And it shouldn't be the case that to get on in life, you've got to move out of the town where you're born and raised. But for too many people, they haven't seen the opportunities.
People put a lot of faith in that idea of levelling up in the previous government, didn't they? And that's not something that the new government has committed to. And I wonder if you're from places, particularly in the north of England, where I am from, where you're from, that there does feel a disconnect between what's happening somewhere else and then whether the voices of communities, particularly in the north of England, are being heard in London.
I think after 14 years of being promised levelling up, that the country would be rebalanced, that everywhere would get opportunities, that the high street would begin to recover when it hasn't done, that the jobs of the past would come back for the future, hasn't been honoured. And people have seen politicians make promises that haven't been delivered. And frankly, they'll only believe it when they see it. We know that. We know that we have got a privilege of being in government. We know that we have a window of opportunity to make that change happen. And we're determined to hit the ground running so every part of the UK sees the benefit of a Labour government. It will take time to do that. We've got a 14-year inheritance, and I think many communities feel quite fragile at the moment. But we believe by working together with the business community, with local communities, with local authorities, that we can build that foundation of a decent economy that allows working people to get on in life.
As the new Communities Minister, you've got a real challenge on your hands, haven't you?
But we always have. You know, I think a lot of communities have held it together really well after 14 years of communities being hollowed out, of the infrastructure that we have, of public services that people rely on, and just look at across the board about the job market and how people are working in extremely long hours but not able to get on in life, that people are working hard and making a contribution, but they can't get a safe, affordable, decent home to live in. You know, we've got a big job of work to do to rebuild the foundations of our country, but we are absolutely single-minded in delivering the missions that Keir Starmer, as Prime Minister, has set out.
Jim McMahon, really good to have you with us this morning. Thank you, Housing, Communities and Local Government Minister. Thank you for joining us here on Breakfast. And it really is reassuring, though,